Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Council. I am Luke Anthony Walsh, and joining me is Andrew Ridley to my George Michael, Mr. Michael Brown.
Hello
How are
there.
you?
Oh, I am so good. Well, actually, you know what, Luke? I'm not good because this is the show where we complain about things and
We
cancel
do.
them and talk about all the controversies in our society. So I'm angry, Luke.
that
Angry with a
that's that's
passion.
that's the sweet spot that we're looking for. That's what we are here for. As always, we will have two issues each where we'll talk about whether we should cancel them or not, and we'll be looking into this week's news and much more. So, without further ado, Michael, take it away.
Well, today I'm going to be canceling something which I think really does need to be cancelled. I think they've had it coming for a while, and it's cultures that are overly belligerent about the integrity of their cuisines. So I'm thinking about, the worst example. I'll say this, okay, this is what really offends me about it. It tends to be the worse countries do in wars, the more they care about people screwing around with their food. So, for example, Italy, notoriously terrible in war. And if you try putting garlic in a carbonara, the Italians are going to come up to you and go, "What do you think you're doing? You're destroying our culture." And it's like, it tastes better. I'm sorry, like I'm really sorry that you're so irrelevant that the only thing you can do is defend your food. But it's not my problem. I like it. Spanish people, similar with have you heard about, do you remember when Jamie Oliver got in trouble for putting chorizo in paella?
Yes,
Yes.
I remember
And
that.
it's just like, it tastes better. I'm sorry you don't have your empire anymore. I'm sorry you used to control an entire continent and now you control like one city in Morocco. That sucks. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you have to get annoyed at people improving your food. And I'll say this again. The worst one, in my opinion, is it's not necessarily that they get angry about it, but the French, I'm going to say this right now, okay? French food is just English food with a fancy name. Like French people, they talk like, oh,
Sacre
English people
bleu,
have
sacre
terrible
bleu.
food and French people have fantastic food. All right, coq au vin,
Yeah.
that's just a chicken casserole. Beef bourguignon, it's just a beef casserole. The only difference is it's just got a fancy name. We could do that, but we don't because we're not twats.
That just that is an exceptional argument. I didn't know where you were going with that
I know.
headline, but you've done well. I mean, they always say that um, the UK eats a lot more curry than the Indians do,
Mm,
uh, and certainly the Americans claim to have sort of invented pizza
yeah,
rather than Italians. So I sort of see where you're going with in the war is that the winners keep all the spoils.
it's true. Yeah.
Um, and they can own the copyright and trademark to whatever they want to do. I mean, just look at Papa John.
Mm.
He's so American. No, he's so Italian. You could smell the New York accent off him. He's one of those gentlemen you think you don't even deserve to be in business, but here we are. That's the society we are
No, yeah,
with cultures
exactly.
and the food.
No, yeah, and I mean it's like we said yesterday. Or last week. It's cultural appropriation. Last week it was Old Lang Syne. This week it's pizza. But the
Yeah.
important thing is, as always, unlike with Old Lang Syne where they ruin everything they touch, the other cultures with pizza, it just gets improved. Basically, you can't get anywhere by just acting all racist about your food and being like, oh, only we're allowed to fuck around with it. No, you know what? People can fiddle around with English food all they like, and I'm not going to have a problem with that because I'm a normal person.
Supposedly, I would like to authorize cultures that are far too sensitive about their food and their culture. They are officially cancelled. So,
Okay,
well done, you.
thank you. What are you cancelling today, though?
But for my first cancellation this week, this might come as some surprise. I'm going to cancel Roald Dahl. Um,
Isn't he already been cancelled by mortality?
well, um, of course, the news this week that Roald Dahl is anti-Semitic, and it was one of those headlines I saw on social media that over the weekend when I thought, how
Mm,
and sort of why is this a story? Because Roald Dahl, right, is somebody, if you're listening outside the UK,
yeah,
he is a major inspiration to our childhood. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach,
the
Matilda,
twits.
the Twits, you name it. He's written some of the greatest children's stories of all time. Some have written some amazing adult stories as well. Lamb to the Slaughter is like an utter masterpiece.
Mm.
Um, and of course, he's written a few biographies when his time in war. But hearing him saying he's anti-Semitic, I've not really seen many quotes to
He's a
sort of
Corbyn
suggest.
supporter. That's it. He said, "I think Jeremy Corbyn was hard done by in the media."
Because I don't, what I sort of always presume with Roald Dahl is that he wasn't very political. It's not as though if Roald Dahl was alive in 2020, he'd be cancelled as quickly as J.K. Rowling was.
Mm.
But I can't really understand how he's anti-Semitic within these stories. It's not as though Charlie and the Chocolate Factory had, I don't know, Augustus Kravitz, or
Yeah,
um, you know,
yeah,
I don't know, Charlie Singh, or like a
yeah,
cultural or political movement, because they were just stories.
yeah.
And there's something quite innocent and quite beautiful about that. But
Maybe he's anti-Semitic because he didn't have any Jews in his books. So that's the problem. People are like, "Is he anti-Semitic?" And someone's like, "Oh, I don't think so. There's no Jewish characters in his book, so there's no like stereotypes or anything." Like, and it's like, wait a minute, he didn't have Jewish characters. What an anti-Semite. Maybe it's you can't win. You include them, and it's a problem because then it's stereotypical. You exclude them, that's a problem because then it's exclusive.
so the statement by the Roald Dahl Company, which I'll come into in a second,
Mm.
referred to two interviews he did in 1983 and 1990. An interview in a newspaper in 1993, he said he believed that there was a trait in the Jewish character that does provoke animosity. In a piece in The Independent in 1990, he acknowledged that he had become anti-Semitic. And in 2018, the Royal Mint chose not to issue a commemorative coin of his birth because of these views. In the statement by the Roald Dahl Story Company, they said they deeply apologise for the lasting and understandable hurt caused by some of Roald Dahl's statements. These prejudiced remarks are incomprehensible to us and stand in marked contrast to the man we knew and to the values at the heart of Roald Dahl's stories, which have positively impacted young people for generations. We hope that, just as he did his best, as absolute worst, Roald Dahl can help remind us of the lasting impact of words. What's your thoughts on that, Mike?
It seems like he said there's some Jewish character that promotes animosity,
Mm,
and it's kind of like, well, to be fair, if you were coming out of Europe in the mid 20th century, you probably would be like, yeah, the Jews seem to really rile people up. They seem to really make people angry. And like, I do agree that maybe he could have phrased it better. He could have been like, it would have been better if he would have said the people don't like Jews because of their character, but they're wrong not to like them. But
mm,
what he said is technically true. It's technically accurate that Jewish people get the local population riled up when they go to somewhere, and obviously nowadays as non-racists we'd be like, well, it's because of the cultural reality of
mm.
ghettoization, all that kind of stuff. But from your average person's perspective, they'd probably just be like, oh, why is everyone so angry at the Jews all the time? And
Yeah.
then they'd probably just be like, oh, I guess it's just something about the Jews.
Mm.
They just really get under your skin with their nasally voices.
But then is this not a question of, and I'm sure that it will come up in future episodes, is this not a question of it was of its time?
Yeah,
In the
that's
same
true.
way
Yeah.
that comedy in the last 6 months has been highly scrutinized. I mean, with Little Britain and Avid Merrin, of course, now known as Keith Lemon, Lee Francis. Um, you look at comedy and sort of even entertainment in the 70s and 80s with minstrels, and you know the,
Yeah.
the stereotypes that would be portrayed in the media um is horrific. So
Mm.
surely a statement like that said in 83 and 90 is, yes, we can. I think it was a perfectly right move to come out and apologize, but I think it was of its time where statements a lot worse was being said at the time.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I don't know, wasn't that when like Israel was straight up like invading Lebanon? So it's kind of
Exactly,
like, well,
exactly.
in the middle of Israel being at war, you kind of got to be like, oh, sure. I remember one time when we used to have a cat, and one time another cat came over because like sometimes you just get cats just migrate into other people's houses,
Mm,
and the cat showed up and it started like bullying our actual cat, and
mm.
I was just like, I said the cat's like Israel. It just came over and started bullying everyone else. And see, that would be considered very, that means I'm going to get cancelled for that. People are like, oh, when we can't have a new coin honoring Michael because he said his cat was like Israel. But no, that's but I have got some interesting news which is related to this anti-Semitism. Did you hear this little headline I've got for you? Adolf Hitler wins election in Namibia. Politician named after Nazi leader sweeps to victory but promises, I'm not striving for world domination. This is with reference to the victory of Adolf Hitler Uununa, who was elected with 85% of the vote in a regional poll, who is now a councillor of for the SWAPO party. So, and basically he's not become the Führer or anything, but he has become a local councillor, Adolf Hitler. What do you think of that?
You love to see it, don't you? I guess you and I, as I guess now journalism graduates, you hear some amazing stories within politics. I mean, even go back to the 2018 midterms, and I think it must have been Nevada or one of the smaller races that a dead person managed to win an election. And I'm trying to think who else. Like, of course, you got Mayor Glenn Jacobs in Knox County, Tennessee, better known as Kane in wrestling circles. It's stories like that. You think, what a wonderful world to live in. It shows that democracy is really doing its job. Adolf Hitler, councillor in Namibia. I mean, I wish all the best to him. Roald Dahl, should he be cancelled?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So Roald Dahl, no, he shouldn't be cancelled. Just like in one of his classic Charlie and Chocolate Factory, he should just be shrunk or stretched out or dumped into some rubbish. That's just that's what we should do. That will be his penance.
But the thing is about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, surely that promotes child cruelty. So we cancel him for that.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. No,
a lot of
cancel for that. I actually always used to think it was weird how in Charlie and Chocolate Factory, like some of the people came out of that like seriously maimed for life because like the guy who I think he gets stretched out from Taffy, he comes out of that just mutilated. Meanwhile, whatever her name is. Sorry, I think she's called Veruca. That's it, yeah, Veruca. She just comes out of it kind of a bit dirty. Like she goes home and has a shower, it's fine. But can Violet wash off that purple? I don't know.
No.
So it's inconsistent.
I don't know. So for the first time and only in our second episode, we have a rejection. So
yes, he shouldn't be
cancelled.
cancelled.
Has been saved for another day. So
yeah. Oh, actually, I guess we should ask: should Adolf Hitler Uununa be cancelled?
No.
He should.
We need to do like a juxtaposed podcast where we don't cancel people. We glorify people.
We cancel their cancelling.
Like Adolf Hitler, whatever his name is, should be glorified.
Yes,
for his work in local democracy. So that is what we should do. But Roald Dahl has not been cancelled.
Yes. Well, I've got some other news for you. The University of British Columbia apologizes after document on yellow privilege sent to students. So this is, of course, a thing that lots of people are all focused on. It's the fact that when you look at a lot of test results and things at universities, you tend to find that East Asian people do very well, white people do whatever, and lots of other people might not do as well. And obviously, we're all used to the idea of white privilege, that when white people succeed, that is white privilege. And now there is a growing number of people who are talking about yellow privilege, this idea of Asian people having privilege. What do you think of that?
It's interesting. I mean, first when you refer to them as yellow privilege, I mean, there's that famous clip. I think it must have been from a '90s children's quiz show, and that girl said yellow, because I think it's one of those terms that has really been eradicated, I guess, from our lexicography of the past 20 years, because even when people said yellow, I don't know why. I think more people would refer to you talking about The Simpsons or something, but it's interesting. And it obviously done by the University of British Columbia. That's Canada, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's interesting to get their perspective because obviously, Canada is a glorious place. You've said I'm pretty sure it was you. You said that you
Yes.
wanted to move there. You've got French Canadian. You've got Native
Yeah. First
American.
Nations.
Yeah, you've got a great. It's a diverse nation, and so yes, it's an interesting study.
No, yeah, basically. I'll read a quote. Someone said, "This is so victim blaming. I can understand why he wants to raise awareness towards Asians being racist to black people, but sending
Mm.
this out during a pandemic when Asians are getting attacked by this virus and Asian businesses are vandalized and closed down, let the community have a chance to recover first." I actually kind of like that. It's kind of just like, like, can we just have a minute, please? We've got this kung flu thing going on. We just have a minute before you start attacking us for being too smart.
Yeah.
I've got This is my penultimate thing. This is just a tweet, but I actually find it really funny. This is my favorite one. This is from a verified Twitter user with 171.9k followers,
Mm.
community and creator marketing at Twitch. Their name is Aurelian.
Okay.
Aurelian, that seems to be a name. And this is their tweet. Happy to see Twitch has listened to everyone who shared feedback and removed the blind playthrough tag to encourage more inclusive language for our community. You can still use first playthrough or opt to use it in a combination with no spoilers for the same sentiment. So basically the concern was that saying blind playthrough, which of course, as we know, a blind playthrough is when you play a game, a PlayStation game or whatever, without ever having played it before. So you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
That's what blind playthrough means. But the concern was that saying blind playthrough might be offensive to people who are blind. So you should instead say first playthrough and then say no spoilers, and that will achieve the same result. Is this a win for inclusive language?
I mean, it's silly, isn't it? I mean, the discussion around lexicography, is one that we don't even realize it's happening. Of course, the big one that came out a couple of weeks ago is, of course, Fairy Tale New York.
Oh yeah, of course.
Being censored on radio for use of a homophobic term, and a lot of people said, well, it's 2020.
Yeah.
It's
What are they going to
one
do
of
about
Britain's.
the food? Because there's literally a food called faggot, isn't there? Like it's like
Yeah,
isn't it like
yeah,
a Scottish thing?
it's
It's a bit like haggis, I think. I don't know.
keep talking and I'll
All right.
find it for you.
Yeah, I'll keep talking and you'll just I'll just sing the lyrics. Actually, you know what? I'm really embarrassed to admit that I'm blanking on lyrics right now. But no, yeah. So definitely it's a term that's important to British culture because we all like laughing at when people go to a pub and order a faggot. And now we might not get to enjoy that anymore because it'll be cancelled.
It is awful, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Yeah, this isn't, so to be fair, most people probably aren't into faggots anyway.
But the thing is again, it's always voted one of Britain's favourite Christmas songs of all time. Obviously, being from an Irish diaspora, it's sung about 1,000 times inside a month. But yeah, I think in this day and age, we have to be able to listen to the argument and hold that debate in a democratic manner. And just as the blind playthrough thing. I mean, I've known people who play games blindfolded or what have you. So, it's down to interpretation and it's down to, I guess it's down to the context. I guess that's the most important bit.
What's going to happen to Blind Man's Bluff?
Or Marco Polo. I mean, let's talk about blind people being aggressive. Huh?
Being blind is not a game, Luke.
Exactly.
So you're not allowed to close your eyes in any games anymore.
It's one to debate, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, yeah.
If you want to get in touch with this very podcast, Michael, how can they go about that?
It's Cancel Council YT@gmail.com. That's CANCELCOUNCIL YT.
Oh my god!
I forgot. I fucking put it. YT@gmail.com. I don't know. Like, to be honest, I really need to come up with a better thing that isn't just ripping off something. As we'll get into. Actually, maybe we should get into it now because you just said you can email, but we did get a comment And the comment,
Whilst you call that up, I may as well refer to our social medias as well. That's Twitter, Council YT. That's CANCELCOUNCIL How you doing, Michael?
yeah, okay, yeah,
On
YT,
Twitter and on Instagram. So we'd love to hear your thoughts and your
yeah.
views. Michael, we have a YouTube comment from
Yeah,
last week.
so the comment was basically it said this was with reference to me asking, can you copyright a jingle?
Hmm.
And this person, Hebaru San, said, yes, you automatically own the copyright to any works you produce. If someone borrowed that very jingle from this video and used it without permission, you could go after them in court. So basically, the minute that anybody comes up with a jingle, it is automatically copyrightable. So really, what we should do, I was thinking, is we could start kind of a jingle hustle where we just kind of sit there for 2 hours and just say every single possible every single possible jingle, and then when it's all done, whenever any multi-million-dollar company comes out and produces a jingle, we can just search through and be like, oh, have we done that already? And we're like, yes, we did. And we go, we can sue them. It's like, yep, we've got proof. We already came up with that jingle. Just need to. You could even do it with a robot. Just get a robot come out with every single possible tune, and that way you can be like, "Excuse me, that jingle's our intellectual property." There definitely is probably one that already sounds like the cancel council thing. But anyway,
So you're
yeah,
essentially saying we should play Battleships with Warner Music or with BMG
yeah,
or
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I have one more piece of news. It's
Go
a big
ahead.
piece, and it's. I'm sure you've heard. Elliot Page has officially. This is really big news. Elliot Page has come out as straight.
Do you want to take a one step back and explain to us who
No, yeah, okay.
Elliot Page
Well, here's the
was?
thing, actually. See, I've got some funny news here. So this is from the what is AJ? I always forget. AJ Plus. Is that are they an affiliate of Al Jazeera, or am I being really stupid?
I have no idea.
Because yeah, I've seen them before, AJ Plus. So I don't know. It could be Al Jazeera because that would make sense. But maybe you'll find out while I read this thing. It says Elliot Page announced he is transgender. My pronouns are he/they. The actor formerly named Ellen Page wrote, to all the trans people who deal with harassment, self-loathing, abuse, and the threat of violence, I will do everything I can to change this world for the better. Now, the funny thing is that there was actually a comment. I'm probably not going to be able to find it immediately. Okay, yeah, here it is. This is it. Yeah, okay. I thought I wasn't going to be able to find it. I was able to find it. This is, I mean, there's lots of comments like this, but this is just one such comment from at Stardust Hellas. Don't dead name him. There's no need for formerly known as at all. And I've seen the sentiment expressed elsewhere by transgender activists have said you shouldn't dead name. Of course, dead naming is when you refer to somebody by their previous name, even for context. So we're literally not allowed to even say Ellen Page,
Yeah.
because even that would be dead naming, which I find very funny because it basically means that you no longer have any referent for anything. So you could kind of come out and go like, yeah, Johnny Bing Bong came out as transgender, and people could be like, who's Johnny Bing Bong? He's like, I can't tell you because they now identify as Johnny Bing Bong, so it would be wrong for me to give you any other name. Just like you can just make it up. It's like, who is just someone who's like, who is Johnny Bing Bong?
I want to write a comic book now. Just
yeah.
The Wonderful Adventures of Johnny Bing Bong.
It's like no one knows who he is because you can't dead name him.
But
He used to be known as Boris Johnson.
What I was thinking about when Elliot, Ellen,
Yeah.
whatever it came out as. When was the last time you heard from Elliot Page?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that actually. It seems like, well, actually, someone pointed out that there's this idea that once an actress reaches a certain age, their roles become immediately more limited because it's kind of like they can no longer be, a romantic interest or something like that. So somebody was theorizing that perhaps Ellen Page decided that by becoming Elliot Page, she can appear in all sorts of things, And I was actually thinking, because there aren't that many short male actors, and oftentimes when because Ellen Page is a short man, he stands at a mere like 5 foot or whatever, which is pretty short for a man. And I was thinking, you don't get many of these short actors around, but usually you see them in comedic roles. So I was thinking what we should do is we should just lean into this really hard. So I was thinking we could get in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Elliot Page shows up as Danny DeVito's long lost brother, and he'd be like, because they'd probably be about the same size. They just get like
something.
just see. I kind of like the idea. You know, there's one part of me that's like, oh, you know, language is being destroyed and we have no referent for anything anymore. But another part of me is like, it is pretty funny. So what I think we should do is just everyone should just willfully act as if Elliot Page is just 100% a man and just really lean into it. So I want to see, I was thinking about this, you know, I was thinking of other roles and I, you know, thought of, Danny DeVito's brother in, because I was thinking about funny short people. And then I realized the true calling of Elliot Page. This is what we need Elliot Page to star in. The new, I believe it's Amazon Lord of the Rings series as a dwarf. Because think about it, he's a mere like 5 foot. So I want to see, you know, this will make it all worthwhile. I will 100% accept that Elliot Page is genuinely a man if I get to see him in all his manly glory with a great big beard and an axe, standing like as a little manlet, 5 foot. Manlet Page. That's what we should call him, because he's so short, just there with his axe, like
you're just
we dwarfs are
now.
we
That's
dwarfs
what
are
you're
distance
doing.
runners. Yes.
I mean, like I just did research. You ever seen the Umbrella Academy?
Yes.
She was in that for a while. Until then, she was in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Kitty Pryde.
So she's not really done
Much.
much other than, of course, Juno in 2007.
Yeah.
And
Which
that
is,
makes
you
me
know,
feel immediately old.
see, the thing is, I do think that's actually a good point, which is that you know, Juno speaks about one of the big problems that a lot of men have to deal with nowadays, which is the concern of getting pregnant. Because you know, Ellen Page, when she got pregnant, when he got pregnant, that was a real concern. Because that's what I want to know. I want to know if it's one of those things, you know, like when sometimes people come out as transgender, they say I was always a man. So I do want to know, was Juno about Michael Cera getting a man pregnant? Because if so, that film suddenly becomes a whole lot better. It's like Michael Cera's like, oh, man, I got a man pregnant. That's great. No, yeah. So it is classic and interesting, and you know, it is, like I say, it's important because it's nice to see people come out as straight. It's like I say, I mean, that's how I started off, and it's something you don't really see much nowadays, people coming out as straight.
If only there was another YouTube channel where somebody talks about gender politics, huh?
Yeah, that would be so good. Unfortunately, we don't believe in self-promotion here, do we?
Much.
I, King Critical, don't believe that. Yeah, no, it's a really fun, it's just a really fun story, and I think, yeah, I think basically
I think the whole idea about identity will go on way into 2021. Of course, another one is sort of a quick one in passing. Of course, Sam Smith is now a thing. Not, and it's just weird. And you know, because again, he was one of those people who, before he did what was the Bond film? Not
yeah, I know which one you're thinking of, but I can't think of it either.
I know what Writings on the Wall is what it was called. He got it to #1.
Was it Spectre?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, it was Spectre. Yes.
See, I wasn't sure which. See, the thing is, I know a lot of the names, but yeah.
You know, Sam Smith is one of those people who have really fizzled out with being relevant. But you know, Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce Jenner was going out of character. Then all of a sudden, one Vogue front cover later, she's one of the most influential transgender women in the world. Moving on to our next topics for cancelling. I guess it's my turn to go first, isn't it? And I'm going to choose a band that I can't get my head round. And there are 7 Korean blokes. They're known as BTS.
Oh yeah, behind the scenes.
Is that what it stands for?
I don't know, actually. I just always think about that because I don't know. It's kind of weird. I've never seen anybody say like BTS, like, because that would be such an obvious joke to do. Like if you're with the Korean band,
the Bangtan Boys.
Bangtang Boys. That sounds dodgy.
The septet they are RM, Jin, Suga, J Hope, Jimin, V, and John Cook is
Jungkook.
is the seven of them.
Okay, that makes sense because I have heard people mention. See, I feel like are you going to point out? Because I want to point this out. I often see like things to do with BTS trending on Twitter, and I just find it so strange because I'm like, why? Why is Twitter? Why are Twitter stands so into it?
Well, BTS. I mean, I just don't know what it is about them. I mean, One Direction 10 years ago,
Hmm.
through the X Factor, when let's remind people they didn't even win, didn't even come close to the top three.
Hmm.
Um, they went massive, and it was Harry, Liam, Niall,
The other one.
Lewis, and Zayn Malik. Um, you know, they went massive because they could sing, and they were just British lads, and then Harry Styles like the older woman. But with BTS, I just don't I can't even name you one of their songs.
Yeah, I
But
know.
yeah,
It's
here they
weird.
are with Jimmy Fallon. They're just everywhere. Their single Dynamite became the most viewed YouTube video in 24 hours with 101.1 million views in the day,
Hmm.
which is what this video is going to surpass about 5 minutes. I'm confident of.
Yes.
Um,
We will be
um,
the new BTS.
I mean, one of my favorite stories that I heard about BTS though, and this might be a qualifier to uncancel them, is that RM, my favorite member of BTS, mentioned South Korea's shared history of pain with the US over the South Korean War in the 50s. Um, but he was also made remarks that angered Chinese social media users as, of course, Beijing backed the North in the war.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's pretty controversial.
and
Yeah.
it's, when you hear moments like that, like you wouldn't find One Direction doing something stupid like that.
No, yeah, it is really funny that you've got like South Korea. Like it's funny that this is the music they're producing, this
Mm,
kind of happy-go-lucky music,
yeah.
while they're like very close to a country that just wants to destroy them. And it's
Exactly.
just like, I mean, I don't know, it's pretty pretty intense. Like, aren't they? I mean, no, they're at peace now, aren't they? They used to be at war. They're now at peace. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why K-pop took off because it was like they obviously Japan, sorry, South Korea and North Korea signed the peace treaty. I think finally, like back in 2019 or something. So
Mm.
maybe then BTS was like, oh, good, I can stop worrying now. Stop worrying about having to, be sign up for war or anything. So start producing music. But no, yeah, I agree with you. It is interesting because, like I say, or like you said, sorry, not like I say, but I do say this as well. You don't really see much of their music. It's almost like K-pop is one of those things where it exists more as a cultural phenomenon than as a thing which anybody actually engages with. It's a bit like 1984 in that way, something which everyone always talks about, but very few people have actually engaged with. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying BTS is the 1984 of music.
Mm.
The other thing is, I think Korea in general is, and most of East Asia is kind of
Mm.
like 20 years behind us because I
Mm.
watched I don't know, I've been watching a few South Korean films before, and I've always thought like, I don't know, it all feels very dated, and I realized that that's basically what it is, and it kind of makes sense. So their BTS is basically our in sync, and that's why, and maybe that's why people are into it, because they're like, oh, it reminds
Hang
them
on,
of the
hang on.
past.
Let's take a moment to recognize that reference. And you just said the great band known as NSYNC. Wow, that is a immediately dated reference.
I know, yeah, that's the thing. No one talks about them anymore, but that's why like people like to be reminded of it. And that's why people like South Korea because it reminds in 20 years South Korea is going to have mumble rappers and emo rappers and Billie Eilish.
Well, she's just a bad guy. Duh. Uh,
We're gonna have to stop the podcast now. Like, that was the worst thing I've ever heard. I I forgot you're like the Manchurian Candidate, but it's the word Billie Eilish that triggers you, and rather than killing the president, you just act really cringy.
But I think But the argument that he presents, and let's take America for example,
Mm,
is that say you're a 14-year-old, American girl who lives in Chicago, for example,
yeah.
um, who's a fan of BTS, and you want to know more about Korea, and you want to know more about what they are, you find yourself very quickly getting into this difficult political and socioeconomic history
Mm,
where it's not just about Gangnam Style or about K-pop, and it's far more in depth, and far more thing. Let's not beat around the bush here. When Korea Japan won the World Cup in 2002, that was no easy feat for them to host, and
mm,
so it's I just find it fascinating why there's such a thing, and
yeah.
it highlights a much wider discussion on not only like world history, but I guess sort of as we sort of been talking about cultural appropriation and sort of understanding what's what. It'd be the same as I don't know a 7-piece band from Northern Ireland
Mm.
going global, because it would open up. Not only are they representing where they're from, but they're also representing what they want to represent in the future.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Basically, it's interesting. I do think there's yeah, I guess the whole cultural context of it, I guess, is just that as we get more scared of the scary parts of East Asia, to kind of
Mm.
balance it out, to show we're not racist. I guess that's kind of the good thing in a way, with North Korea. I've always thought that North Korea and South Korea, they kind of prove racism wrong because it's like it's the one example where there's these two completely disparate countries, and you can't be like, oh, it's because of, North Koreans are just inferior to South Koreans or something, because they're basically the same people. It's just because, of social circumstance. And that should really make you realize that that's the cause of all problems in the world. And I think what we do need to do, though, to balance out our love for K-pop is listen to some really good communist anthems. Just to like, when are we going to get the Democratic People's Choir on Jimmy Kimmel? Just like 100 people just crowd into Jimmy Kimmel Live. I just kind of like, hey, no, I'm not going to do an impression. I'll get me cancelled. But
Well, I think it's the whole point of when you have a band more than 5 people, then you're immediately in trouble because you go, "Who's your favorite?" and says, "Well, can you name any of them?"
yeah, that's true. There are too many people. 7 people. That's like, yeah, that's pushing it. Like, is it really I feel like at that point it's not really a band. It's more of a crew. Just
it's a collective.
yes, exactly. Oh, I'll tell you what, North Koreans are like that, a collective. That's how they should sell themselves.
North collective.
Yeah, exactly.
So BTS,
Yes.
should it be cancelled?
Um, yeah, I think they should be cancelled until they improve, until they start making some more edgy stuff. I guess that's kind of actually that's usually when people get cancelled, it's for being too edgy. But I feel like in the case of BTS, it's kind of they're very bland.
Yeah,
So it's kind of just like they're sort of inoffensive, and that's the worst crime of them all.
yeah.
So yeah, let's cancel them.
BTS have been cancelled.
Now it's time for me. I just realized I was about to wrap up, and I realized I forgot my one, and it's a
Yeah.
weird one. It's a really fun one. Renting. I'm canceling renting. Now, this is politically relevant, which is the most important thing, because I don't know if you heard, but there is a planned rent strike amongst students in the UK, forthcoming, and it's to do with basically it's always like the end of with this renting thing. In Bug's Life, of course, they have to give the grasshoppers this food in order to live on the ground, and what they realize is that if they just say no, the grasshoppers can't really do anything because the grasshoppers don't really have any power when everyone says no. If just one ant says no, the grasshoppers can just smush them, just like how actual landlords work. But if everyone just says no, there's nothing that anyone can do. Like if everyone just says nope, we're not going to pay rent, they can't just deal with everyone if everyone's saying they're not going to do it. But here's my issue with rent, okay? And it's this. When people own houses, it basically means that they can set everything up for their future family. So if you think about it, my grandparents are property owners. They own a property, a house, and it means that if they ever move into an old people's home or pass on, then they will that the house will be inherited because they own it. So it will then be inherited and then presumably sold, and then that money will like trickle down, and then that will put like obviously my parents and my aunties and my uncles in a nice situation where they'll have a lot of extra money to throw around, which means they'll be able to pay off their mortgages and all that stuff. And then when the generation after that gets older, then their parents will be richer because of their grandparents. Whereas if somebody's renting, then basically what happens is they spend all their life just paying this rent, and then they die, and then it's just they've got nothing to pass down to the future generations. So it's
Yeah.
basically a way of making it so the richest people can just continue making things better and better for themselves because they're like, yeah, we own all this stuff, so we can just hand it down to the next generation. Whereas all the poor people are stuck just renting, and then at the end of it, what they got to show for it? A can of Carlsberg, I assume. That's how I imagine all poor people die.
So this is just a student thing.
Well, yeah, so it's a student thing that they're doing the rent cancellation. But I guess what I'm saying is that the rent strike should become global. The entire world should just say, you know what, rent is stupid. And I guess the other thing is, it's such a lazy job. Like imagine that your job is just like, I own a house and then other people pay me to live in it. And that's how I make my money. It's like, well, it doesn't really sound like as much of a job. It sounds more just like you own something and then you just get money for it.
I mean, but then does that really prepare students for the real world? I mean, like again, a sort of take me for an example. I'm somebody who's living at home in Luton, and looking to move out with my fiance and find a place of our own.
Yeah.
And you look at the Help to Buy scheme, you look at all what's going on, and it's such an advanced maze of loopholes here, there, and everywhere that we're not taught about these things in school. We're not explained. What? Yes, we can understand what rent is, but we're not explained how we can get our own property and get on our feet, because it's just assumed in society that you sort of move into a shared place with students in halls and university, and you go from there. But you said it quite yourself, is that 30, 40 years ago, it was a completely different system altogether. I mean, you take one of the many good things that Margaret Thatcher brought in was that
you buy a council house.
You buy a council house, and my aunt
cancelled councils.
she did. My aunt bought a property in North London, in Finchley Park. I think she bought it for like 30 or 40 grand. She sold it a couple of years ago for like
50.
Yeah, but she sold it a couple of years ago to move to retire in Brighton for like £800,000.
Yeah.
And you look at things like that, is that we wouldn't we wouldn't get that in this day and age. It was a one of a kind sort of economic sort of
everything was super cheap in the 90s.
Exactly, and sort of the conditions were right for that to take place. So it's interesting. I think it's all down to socioeconomics, of course. And that's sort of how, when we do come out of this pandemic, where we are in terms of a depression or a recession, and then how we get ourselves out of it. But I think
revolution.
I don't know whether I agree or not with that strike, because it does sound a bit petty on paper, because like you sort of see stories of students in the school refuse to do this, refuse to do that, and you just think just
that is true.
To worry about.
But it's very difficult to take anything students do seriously, because it's very obvious to me that whenever students, this is what I was thinking about with the whole Black Lives Matter protests. It's great that I think this is the first time we've mentioned Black Lives Matter on this cancel council thing. But yeah, all I was thinking was, let's be honest, it's just students going out of their mates. Like, oi, buddy, do you want to go down to the Edward Colston statue and tear it down? Yeah, mate, that sounds right laugh. That was basically what it was. They were just like, let's be honest, if you're just like, oh yeah, there's nothing to do, let's go tear down a statue. It's not this grand political statement. You're just having a real good fun time with your mates, which is fine. I can respect that. But, I do agree with you that it's hard to see it as a massive political statement, because students, I think we can say now we're no longer students. We're officially no longer students. Students are a bunch of useless twats. So anything they do shouldn't be taken seriously. So I guess what we really need is a awakening of class consciousness, because I think that's the other issue. Most students are middle class, so it's kind of like, they're having this rent strike, but let's be honest, these are people who are going to move into mummy and daddy's 5 bedroom flat when it's sort of 5 bedroom house when it's all over.
Exactly.
Whereas the working class, the actual people who live in Hackney or Croydon or whatever, who don't go to university, they're not getting empowered by our communist anti-rent rhetoric. So that's where we need to be focusing our evangelism efforts. So yeah, I guess, I'm kind of with you. So yeah, let's say students being angry about not being able to pay their rent, cancelled. But what we need is rent to be cancelled from an awakening from the working class masses. Thank you for coming to my Marxist TED Talk. Bed talk.
I don't know if I can take that. I'm going to say offside, mate. No, I'm not going to have that.
Oh, you capitalist pig.
I think there's too many loopholes, and I think we may need to return to it to another day.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Next week you will be cancelling radical leftism. All right. Well, I tell you what. Next week's going to be great.
Only what? One thing cancelled in this show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was people being over the top with their food.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is great. So I'm happy with that. And next week I'm sure there's going to be even more news, even more things to cancel, and hopefully, we will. I think we've done an even better job. I like to think that this podcast, the format, is going to progress exponentially going forward, and therefore, people are going to be really on board with this. They're going to love it. I guarantee it. And therefore, if you want to get involved, remember, email. It's below in the description. But one more time, what was it? Okay, so CANCELCOUNCILYT.
Got it in
at
one.
gmail.com.
And on the social, it's CANCELCOUNCILYT.
At Twitter.
On Twitter, on Instagram. We want to hear your views and your cancels, and we will be discussing them next week. I've been Luke Anthony Walsh. That has been Michael Brown. It's been good to talk to you. See you next week.
Back at you.